Well, hello and welcome to another Campfire CoWorks Fireside chat. We're extremely excited for you guys to tune in and watch this new episode. And my guests today are the founders of Shape and Sound Arts Academy, Ben Pawlowski and Patrick Booth. And they are the two gentlemen that started this art academy with a new solution to providing an art education for today's youth. So that's really exciting, and we're excited to have them here and talk a little bit about the creative arts, what you guys are accomplishing in the area, and how to make basically spread creativity around the world. That's what you're, Marquette and beyond, right? Yep. So, it says here that you guys aim to provide meaningful art-based experiences. Can you tell me a little bit about what does that mean?
Well, I think we're trying to go beyond just having like a cut and dry lesson where we give these kids a formula and they create something. We want to have them really think about what they're making, why they're making it, and what that thing could do for the world. So when we're trying to orchestrate these experiences, it's we don't necessarily always have a specific idea in mind of what the result is going to be. We're giving them some ideas, we're throwing some suggestions out there. There are skills that we're teaching them, but as far as what they do with those skills is really more up to each individual. So, we could design these sort of experiences that we have, and 100 different people could go through it, and you'll end up with 100 different results. It's kind of the best way I can sum it up.
Yeah, very open, right? So when a kid comes in, then you find out what they're passionate about and then try to direct that. And now you guys have both have backgrounds in being teachers. And so when did you guys realize that you had a passion for the arts? Was it something that was developed early, or over time you're like, man, I think I have a knack for this?
My love for music, so I'm the sound side of things at Shape and Sound Arts. My passion for music started when I was in sixth grade band, and my band director, the late Bob Christ at Ithaca High School where I grew up, was a huge influence on me because he showed us how to love music, not from like an ability standpoint, but just from a joy standpoint. So he instilled in us this drive not to be the best musician, but to be the most joyful musician. And so I wanted to do that for children as well, the way that he did. And so that's why I decided to go into music education. And from there, I learned to really love to play the instrument and to play music and study music. And so instead of going directly into the teaching field, I went and did a master's in performance. And then from there, began to perform more and more and more. And now I'm teaching again.
Great.
And performing and all of it. But that's, for me, it started, just in sixth grade band from joy.
So what instruments can you play, or do you play?
Instruments that I play are clarinet, bass clarinet, and saxophone being my main instrument. But through the music education program, I had to learn how to play all instruments at a level that I could teach a young student. So if a student came to me and asked me how to play a trumpet, I'd have to be like, oh, okay, here you go, here's hot cross buns. But now it's saxophone and clarinets.
Great. What about you, Ben? What about the art side of when that was, started for you?
Yeah, it's a little complicated, I guess, but I would say, my earliest memories are just kind of creating art with my brothers. I have three brothers, two older, one younger, and my older brothers like to draw, and I think more than anything, I started off just wanting to impress them. So I think that's what kind of got the bug in me, and I had parents that supported us being creative. My mom was really good at coming up with creative things for us to do around the house and during the summer and stuff like that. And then I think I was just, even before I knew I wanted to do it for a living, I always sort of gravitated towards other people that were making, whether it was visual arts, music, or something. I was just curious of you're in your free time, you're deciding to create something from nothing. That's interesting to me, and I want to know more about it. Even if it's not the thing I want to do, I want to know why you're doing it and what that's all about. I think I came to deciding I wanted to be a teacher at some point in college. I did know I wanted to do something with art, but I really didn't know what. I was interested in video, I was interested in a lot of found object art, and I just really felt scattered. And I actually was tutoring somebody that lived in the same building as me in math, just because I was pretty decent at math but I definitely knew I didn't want to be any kind of math teacher. I could teach somebody one-on-one, and I got a lot of satisfaction out of that. And it was kind of a great deal. I had 2 people that I tutored. One of them had their beautician's license, and the other one was studying to be the culinary arts. So I tutored this person, get a good haircut, tutored this other person, get a great meal. It's like, oh man, maybe this sounds great. How can I do more of this? So I kind of decided to take that satisfaction from teaching, but then combine it more with my interest in art, and then here I am.
Yeah. It's amazing that, bartering services, right? Like, it's like, hey, I can teach you some things, you can teach me some things, and there might be a great exchange of value there. You mentioned, both of you use this term, the word creative. A lot of people use that nowadays, and it's even in the entrepreneurial sector. It's like creative entrepreneurs and designers and other people of that sort and developers. So it's used a lot in different types of contexts depending on the arena, but what is your definition of a creative? What it means to be a creative person? It's a little deep.
That is a tricky one.
That's such a good question, though.
I'm going to try to piece through it as best as I can. I mean, I think it can be a variety of things. I don't think it has to be your profession. Your profession might be something that nobody would think of as being creative. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to go with like a tax specialist. I don't know anything about that thing, but that just, to me, that seems like that would be something that's pretty cut and dry. But I bet if you had the right person with the right know-how and the right tools, they could, turn that into something creative, or at least have a creative way of doing their job. So what makes a person creative as like a noun? That's a tough one. I think hopefully they have some sort of a creative practice or creative outlet. Could involve making something, could involve creating music, it could involve collecting stamps. I mean, there's a creative way to do just about anything. So I don't know. That's. I'm going to start there. I'm going to let that percolate a little bit more. I'm going to let you attempt it, because that's a loaded one.
Yeah, that is. And I was going to say the same thing that you were going to say. Everybody is creative. I believe that everyone.
Short answer. Everyone's creative.
Everyone is creative. Ben and I talk about this a lot with our students. We talk about it a lot with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about it a lot with parents, because parents will get their kids involved in our program. Like, I don't have a creative bone in my body. Yeah, you do. Maybe you haven't tapped into it, and maybe it's not a part of your day-to-day, but you got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We week was Art Week here in Marquette, and we did a drawing web, which people came to our booth and they would take a small square and they would draw something that was connected to another picture in the drawing web. And we started with this. We started with our logo for Shape and Sound, and then it grew from there. And it went to monsters. We had unicorns. We had a head with many ears, which was pretty.
Great.
That was one of the more creative ones.
There's good symbolism there that we should often listen more
than
we
speak.
Yeah.
And one of the first ones that was drawn, it brings up this question. An adult came into the booth and sat down, and they asked if they could draw something. I'm like, yeah, of course. And like, well, I'm not creative. Like, I'm not a talented person. And both Ben and I, like, right away were like, yeah, you are. Mm-hmm. And they drew a stop sign and wrote stop. And it wasn't a stop sign exactly how it was. It was a little bit cooler. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's a creative stop sign. Like, what you just did was shown that you can draw something from memory. You can piece things together in a creative way that fits the drawing web.
It's their stop sign.
It's
right?
their stop sign.
It's like they owned it. It's however they see fit. And it's interesting how you talk about the workshops that you do with the kids that get enrolled, and even like involving the parents. And can you talk a little bit about, do you guys use technology or technology-based tools in your workshops, and how does that get incorporated?
Well, certainly right off the bat, when we started our program, we did start it in the middle of the pandemic, so we did have to start as an online program. So we were certainly utilizing Zoom and really any sort of program that could kind of assist us with doing a virtual distant educational program. So that, we certainly have to do it just for the framework of our program, but then also just kind of teaching kids using technology. A lot of it kind of comes natural. There's some times where we will set up an idea or something like that. One of the students will be like, oh, well, can I incorporate photography into that, or can we do video, or something like that. We did a really interesting project. It was kind of for something that Fringe hosted. Fringe hosted this online video festival. What was it called?
Glimpses from Nowhere.
Glimpses
from Elsewhere.
From Elsewhere, yeah. Different video artists from wherever to submit like a 5-minute video or less, and they were gonna put together this whole show. And we just kind of approached that with our students. We're like, what sort of thing can we do? And we're like, you could do animation. If somebody wants to do music, if somebody wants to do photography, like what can we do? And just kind of like, we really tried to treat them like collaborators. Throwing ideas out there, putting our ideas and experience into the conversation, but not saying like this is what you should do or this is what you must do or anything like that. So yeah, a lot of it just comes natural, but certainly a lot of it is just the way things are going. I think if you're doing anything, I don't know, even creative or not creative, I mean, if you're not at least considering how technology is going to play a role in that, or how it can assist in some way, or I don't know, you might be missing out on something.
Yeah, and do you find that the kids they're quick to learn some of the technology, or do you
Absolutely.
do you feel that they're like, granted in every situation there is a bit of a learning curve, but do they tend to grasp it fairly quickly?
Pretty quickly, yeah. I mean, again, just with Art Week, one of the events we did was kind of this collaborative, we refer to it as an animation jam, where we taught kids just the littlest bit about doing stop motion animation, and we had these kind of stations set up, and then we said, go. And then they went. Like, I was a little nervous about it beforehand. It's like, I don't know, man, stop motion animation with kids that we don't even have like a relationship with yet, is that going to work? And they knocked it out of the park. It was great. It was great. So yeah, oftentimes they're super quick to it. Sometimes know things I don't know, or noticed something I didn't realize.
Different perspective.
Yeah. I think it's a project that's been on my mind recently. Like, I have a young son who he's going to be 2 in August, and so on his birthday I'm going to release a record of duets that he doesn't know that he played, but he played. I would record him playing piano by himself from when he was 7 months old. He would just sit at the piano, and I would record him until he was done. Some of them were 45 seconds long, some of them were 4 minutes long, and then I sent them to all of my favorite improvisers around the world. And I said, hey, this was all at the start of the pandemic. I'm like, hey, if you find time, record a duet with my son. He's 1.5 years. And they all, who are, they're world-class improvisers and musicians and creative people, they all came back and said the same thing. They said, I haven't been this nervous to play with someone in a long time, because the creativity of a child's mind is completely different than the creativity of an adult's.
Yeah.
Because we are basing our creative integrity, our creative output, our creative framework on failures and successes we've had in our life. And so we can sort of see things like, oh, if I do this, there's this outcome. But when you're working with young children, they haven't experienced that, and so their creative outlook on things is limitless. You just tell them, like, this is what we're doing, this is what you have to work with, try it out, and then they make something that would take us months.
Yeah.
Or we would stress about it for days beforehand. Like, I have this idea, but I don't know. Maybe it's not going to work out, or maybe people are going to misunderstand it. And kids are just like, "Oh, I'm just going to do it," and then you have like this masterpiece in front of you.
Their fear is like almost not there. It's non-existent because they're not afraid to try new things. Like you said, we oftentimes limit ourselves because of past experiences. The fear of like. No one's gonna like this, or people are gonna, think I'm doing it this way or that way, and I think that's also interesting how you mentioned like it was a challenge. Like they were afraid and nervous. Like I think that might be a good exercise for people that think they're all down a bag just as a creative. It's like, hey, why don't you do something that's completely out of your comfort zone and do something creatively with some like you provide the footage, and they were able to kind of put their own take on it and realize like, wow, there's something that could be really meaningful and beneficial for everyone involved. So that's interesting. I never think you hear something like, oh, it was a challenge to work with footage that you provided from like a 2-year-old that's just kind of playing on the piano.
Yeah, I didn't figure it would be that challenging, but I've tried it myself, and it is incredibly challenging. I sort of think about it like the alphabet. It would be like, you know, just like randomly say the alphabet and don't miss any letters.
Mm.
And my brain
Yeah.
instantly short circuits, and I'm just like, I can't. Like I don't even know where to begin, you know, because it's so ingrained in us
To say it
in
that
order.
way, yeah.
Like it's been so ingrained in us, like this is the alphabet. Anything else is not the alphabet.
Color inside the lines.
Yeah.
Don't go outside the lines.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think, you know, a lot of what we're trying to do with our program is like hold on to that fearlessness. You know, we started working with the age group that we felt like they still kind of have that, but as they get, you know, in high school they're starting to get self-conscious. You know, somebody told them they didn't like their drawing or something like that. So now all of a sudden when they go to make something, they're worried about how somebody's gonna reinterpret it. And I've worked with a lot of students, you know, at the middle school and high school level that I think are way more talented than I was at their age, but they get a little scared of how other people are going to interpret their work. And they'll sometimes fall back on something that, you know, that they've done 100 times. You know, they have their character that they've drawn 9,000 times, and that's cool that they've gotten that much practice, but you want to try to shape them out of that and get them to do something new. And that's really a lot of what we're trying to do, is get them to do something that they couldn't do on their own. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's more of that's a human thing. You know, we tend to be pulled back to what's comfortable versus, you know, because we're trying to avoid pain.
Yeah.
You know, so when you step out of your comfort zone, you're doing something that there's going to be a learning curve, and it might be painful because I don't want to do it this way, or like, you know, especially if it comes to like, you know, if you never woodworked before or doing any type of sculpture work, you're like, well, just knowing first you got to start with the tools, right? Knowing the type of tools. So what are like when it comes to like musicianship and like sounds, what are the type of tools that you guys kind of use in that aspect?
Oh, anything really. You know, like anybody is creative. Like everyone is creative. Like everyone can be a sound device. You know, everything that we come in contact with can be sound, and that was something again that took a while. But you just start to look at things a little bit differently when you look at it from a sonic perspective. Not that like everything is going to be a masterpiece. Like not everybody's going to be Beethoven.
Yeah.
But, you know, Beethoven had failures too.
Sure.
And so when it comes to like, you know, things that we use in that context, it's like, I think we live in a beautiful place, right? We can all agree that Marquette is a beautiful, beautiful place.
No argument here.
And so I look at it like, how can we use that beauty from like a musical perspective? And you go out and you find a vantage point where you can see Hogsback, you can see Sugarloaf, you can see the tree lines, you can see all these things, and there's different levels, and all of a sudden if you can trace that in your mind, and then you can put notes to that, it gives you everything that you need. It gives you your range, it gives you your length, it gives all of it, and then all of a sudden you play it, and it's literally like you've played the skyline of Marquette.
Yeah.
You've played the skyline between Marquette and Big Bay. Or, you know, a really cool project that I've seen people do is they tape pens and pencils to the tree branches, and they put a piece of paper underneath just so they're touching, so that when the wind blows through, it moves the pens and pencils. And then they're like, okay, that's done. Like, this is legitimately what air looks like when it goes through a tree. And then you can do the same thing with music. Like, you put a piece of manuscript paper underneath, and the tree actually draws the contour of the line.
Interesting.
You know? Or like reading tree bark. I read tree bark with a band before. And I made a system of sonic textures based on what you see when you look at a piece of tree bark.
Wow.
You know?
And by the way, you don't have to just live in Marquette, Michigan to do all these fun things. Like wherever you're at, right? Like
Wherever.
start exploring, because it's amazing. You live in just a small little bubble, and you realize that if you just push out of that and you go in exploring for different areas, you'd be shocked where the inspiration will eventually hit, right? Because no one knows. We as humans have we're very difficult of knowing what really makes us happy until we get out there and they're like, I don't think I'll ever be happy doing that. And then you do it and you're like, wow, boy, have I been missing out, right?
Yeah, we don't want to miss out on anything. You know? Just like there's no reason why you can't try and try and try.
Yeah, and I think, you know, another aspect related to that of what we're trying to do, you know, these different ways of kind of experiencing the world through a creative lens, whether it's music, whether it's visual, whatever, is giving the people that participate in our program a different way to experience the world around them. So, I've been doing a lot more photography lately, and now it's like I walk around Marquette and it feels like a fresh place to me because I've spent some time looking at it in a different way, or like trying to pay attention to different parts of the world. You don't look up in town as much as you often do. Like you think, oh yeah, you notice the sky, but you don't necessarily always know the skyline or what buildings are peeking over another one. And it just, I don't know, it's kind of, at the very least, it's refreshing, and hopefully there's some profound discoveries that happen along the way as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, everyone's doing the smartphone slouch when they're walking. They're just doing this, so it's like you said, how often do you stop and just kind of look around like, wow, never noticed that.
Yeah, and it's not to say that,
I have to put people down for, being addicted to technology, but we all do it.
We all have our moments.
Right.
And it's not even to say that, like, that needs to be their creative outlet for the rest of their life, but they have that resource, they have that tool, they have maybe a new way that they can experience the world around them, whether that's the town they've lived in for 40 years or a new place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, earlier you guys mentioned about, Art Week, and we just had Art Week here this last week in Marquette. It's the last week of June, and it has been for the last couple years now. And for you guys specifically, what is it about Art Week that just like, man, I just can't wait till Art Week shows up?
I think it's the whole town kind of like vibrating from it, even if not everybody is involved in every event, it's still it's a little bit of everywhere. It really fills in so many nooks and crannies, and this year I think was the biggest one we've had so far. So it's really nice to get other people to start paying attention to some of this stuff. I mean that's the start of it.
Yeah, it sort of ties into what you were talking about with photography. Putting art in random places around town makes people stop and look, makes them see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many times I've walked by the Commons here in town. I don't know how often. How many times I've walked through downtown and just like gotten to where I needed to go and not remembered seeing anything.
Yeah.
And with like all this art then being added, to the sidewalks, to the walls, to the windows, it gives you something to look, and then it's like, oh wow, look at this store that I have never noticed because like I just didn't pay attention.
Because I have to get where I'm going,
Exactly.
and I'm on a schedule, or life happens, and it's just everything else kind of gets pushed to the wayside, right?
Yep. I'm just going to get a cookie, and nothing's going to stop me from that path. And then it's like, wow, look at this amazing storefront, and like I never would have noticed it if somebody didn't put a mural on it, So that's like just one of the many beautiful things about Art Week here.
Yeah, and then you said like this one being the biggest thus far. Is it because you think that it's starting, like more people are getting involved in it, or based on like past year, a lot of with people kind of being secluded and quarantined, they're like, man, I just got to get out there. I just got to be around my my people, my tribe, my group, and to like you said, to vibrate off one another, to that synergy.
I think it's a bit of both. I know certainly for me, it had been so long since I'd gotten to like really make art with people in a more public setting. So when Art Week was starting to come up, and I just started talking to a bunch of different people about ideas, and it seemed like every idea I was throwing out there, people were saying yes to. So it's just like all of a sudden we're doing like 100 different things, but it was kind of refreshing because you've been kind of building that up for so long. But yeah, and then I think it is also the other thing that they've gotten a lot more people involved. It was actually my first Art Week because last year we didn't have it, and I've only been in Marquette for just under 2 years, so hopefully I contributed a little bit to the increase because I wasn't here for the last one.
Yeah.
And all your ideas are being approved, Ben. I mean,
I feel like that's a
you're batting 1,000% over here.
You're literally only hitting home runs.
Yeah, right.
I don't know about that, but I had a good time.
Yes.
I think about seeing the huge increase in people for Art Week. I think another thing that is sort of interesting to look at is people who didn't think they were creative, or like didn't have an outlet for their creativity, or felt a little bashful about their creativity, just spent a year maybe only doing the thing that let them create because they were stuck in their house, and then all of a sudden they were able to step back and be like, wow, now's the time for me just to be like, hey, look at my art.
Yeah.
Let me do something. Like I feel like people really wanted to showcase what they've done over the last year, or something that they've been doing for decades and no one ever knew.
Yes, that's the biggest thing where like people they're their own worst critic, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh man, it's not good. But then you get out there and then people are like, wow, people really enjoy this. People are purchasing it. That's the key ingredient. If someone really likes it, they're going, hey, can I buy this off you? That's where you know, like, wow, you really got something here, because it's when people are willing to, exchange counters for it. And it's not all about the money, but it's like at least it shows that it's being valuable. People are valuing it for what it really is, and it's all yours. You take full ownership and control of how you put that together. And so obviously, Art Week was fantastic. You guys had a blast, and it was just fun seeing the community engagement. So where do you guys see like art and our community going or expanding here locally?
Well, I guess first in regards to Art Week, one thing I kept telling, there was some kid on Friday of last week, we were doing some sidewalk painting over by the Commons, and they were like, oh, Art Week is over tomorrow. I wanted to go longer. And I was like, don't worry, next year. So this year was Art Week. Next year we'll do Art Month. And then the year after that, we'll just do art year and just be doing stuff like this all the time. She's like, all right, just 2 more years. All right, let's do it. And that would be, I think that is certainly a possibility. I think that this community really does support the arts. They're certainly open to some different ideas happening here. I guess more for my own sort of like personal goals, along with like Shape and Sound, I really want to make connections have art be the glue or the connector between the community and some of the entities and businesses and organizations in town. Because I think there's an interesting way to build art experiences that are helping people to make those connections with their community.
Wow, that's very powerful. And like with you guys, like seeing like, do you think that we need more creatives? Like the demand is high that we need more people jumping into the creative field?
I think we need more people being more creative.
Just overall.
Overall in all fields.
Yep.
Now, do we need more people in the creative fields? That gets a little trickier because I feel like part of that is getting more into the business money side of things, and that, as I've told everybody that I work with, that's not my expertise in the creative arts. So I would love to see more people with a creative outlet, a creative twist with what they're doing on a day-to-day life. But as someone that has experienced the amount of work that it is to try to make it a living, I don't know that I would like, hey, you should go into a local art community program or something like that. I think it would be better for the world if that were more if more of that kind of thing was happening. I don't know that everybody would be able to pay their bills. It's maybe where I hesitate to be like, everybody should be creating art. But I don't know, maybe maybe somebody else has that other piece of the puzzle that I can't speak to.
There's being the creative, and then there's also the business proponent or the entrepreneurial proponent, which is a whole nother side of things, because you first got to hone your skills into something that you really want to do, or you really are very proficient and professional at, and then going to market or trying to allow other people to know that, hey, this is what I do for work and this is what I do for a living, and if they're going to be, turn that into a business. But before you even do that, it's all about just creating because it's fun. Like you talked about, your music teacher is just about be a joyful musician, be a joyful artist. Yeah. And if that's all that is, it just brings you happiness and joy and peace, then you won. But obviously not to negate that, hey, you still, you got to make a living somehow, but there are ways now and platforms that people are using their creative outlets to make some kind of income from that. And so it's kind of neat because as you guys expand your company, what are some areas that you're looking of expanding into?
Well, I would say, we started off the program, the biggest sort of motivator was the fact that the middle school here had canceled their visual arts program. So we were like, there's an immediate need for the community. That's where we should start. But now that, we've been working with that age group and, our vision of what we could be doing for the community has grown and changed and evolved in different ways. I certainly think we intend to expand that age group that we serve, and I really think we've got something to offer really anyone at any age level. And I think, like we have this summer camp program that we're going to be providing for ages 9 to 14, but I really think that same program could benefit just about anyone. Maybe it would need to be skewed a little bit for a younger group or rearranged a little bit for an older group. But I was even saying the other day, it'd be really great if we could at some point find a way to provide this program as an all ages thing and get, kind of an intergenerational experience. How does somebody that's in their 70s respond to some of these ideas versus somebody who is 7? And just kind of get that conversation
Yeah, so you have like grandma or grandpa with their
bring the whole family
and
over.
everyone comes in because everyone's got different life experiences. They live through different times. So like when they're doing this and doing that, it's just overall just a bonding experience. Everyone gets together and it's a family outing, right? Like it's a good time and it's a fun time. And one thing that we're trying to do is along with what we're doing here at Campfire CoWorks is working with MATI, which is the Masonic Arts Theater and Innovation Group. And a very similar thing is just like, there are a bunch of artists out there, or there's these creatives that, maybe a program was canceled or they're looking for a creative outlet and they have, spaces and resources available, and to just let people know like, hey, it's available. But you got to take initiative too. You got to put the time into like, hey, if this is something you want to commit to it. And there is no right or wrong way to do this. You're only kind of limited by your imagination, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's awesome. And then, if people want to learn more about like their creative outlets and how they would get in touch with you guys, or maybe, if they have a artistic son or daughter, or they know maybe their neighbor is like, man, like she's really good art. Like, how would they get in contact with you and that whole process?
I mean, the quickest, sort of most complete answer is just going to our website, shapeandsoundarts.com. That can give you an idea of our goals as an organization. You can take a glimpse at some of our visual arts and music curriculum that we have worked with. You can see some examples of student work, some of our resources that we have. If you go to that and you still have questions or blanks that need to get filled in, then you can email us. The email's on the website, or it's just shapeandsoundarts@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram, which is at shapeandsoundarts. Any of them missing? Facebook, we're on
Shape
there.
and Sound Arts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the socials, right?
All the
Yeah, we tried to get the big ones at least. Yeah.
That's great. Now, this maybe just quickly switching gears, favorite projects that you've ever worked on? And that might be hard to pick one, but like the thing that you're like, man, when I did this project, wow, was it fun and memorable?
Do you have one geared up? I can go into one that comes to mind.
Go for it.
Okay. I remember it was my first year teaching in a new school. It was an elementary school in Tucson, Arizona. And, I was really trying to be ambitious with some of the projects, and sometimes you start a project and you start to think, I don't know, man, I might have really bitten off, more than I could chew with this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 3rd grade, and we were trying to do these sort of mixed media paper mache masks. So they kind of build a cardboard, like almost helmet around their head, and then we do paper mache and all sorts of different stuff on top of it. And, for some kids it was definitely a challenge. Not everyone knocked it out of the park necessarily, but everybody tried. And I think even the students that didn't have the mask they had in their head sitting in front of them, I think they got something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then some kids just really, really knocked it out of the park, where I'm just like, I'm teaching this, and I don't think I could have made something this interesting or profound.
You want to teach the next lesson there, young?
Yeah, it's like, man, we gotta get you on the payroll here.
Right.
You got something's going on there that we
Yeah.
should all be harnessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, I guess me. Let's see.
He gave you plenty of time, Pat.
I know. I'm just trying to think. Like, I don't know. I've done some cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one with your son, that was pretty neat. Is something
That one's-
similar, or was that just like?
That's like that's like amazing. Because that's been like just a joy to see. Like, it helped me get through the pandemic. Sort of thinking about it, and like I never thought I would release it,
Yeah.
but going to, and all the money that's raised through it is going to get donated to an arts organization for youth.
That's great.
Because so that's a cool project. I guess another visual art inspired project is when I was living in Traverse City before moving to Marquette. I worked with a piano player named Jeff Haas, who really, really amazing person, and he has a radio show on public radio called the New Jazz Archive, which everyone should listen to. It's on NPR, run through IPR, Interlochen Public Radio. But Jeff and I played duo while two painters painted the music.
Okay.
Which was cool. So like they each had these easels, and they had their what's it called? Canvas. Canvas, thanks. Sorry, this is a musician in me. So the canvas on these easels that spun, so they could look at they weren't since everything was improvised, they were not stuck with one viewpoint of the canvas. So like
It's not one dimensional. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, like, wow.
So they would stand back and they would spin it, you know, and they would like look at it in a completely different. And those two artists are Tali Farchi and Royce Deans, and it was amazing. We did it. We like practiced it a bunch,
Mm-hmm.
and then we did. I think we did 3 different performances live for a live audience where they would paint these.
How long were
pictures.
the performances?
Depended.
Yeah.
You know, they would do 2 paintings per
Okay.
performance. So like I would say both, like they would paint a picture in 50 minutes.
Okay.
And that was like a really like a profoundly moving experience, because then you were like, you know, me as the improviser, like I tried to keep my eyes closed because I didn't necessarily want to be affected by what they were painting color wise, but I could hear their movements. I could hear the movement of the brush and the scrapes, and so like I could tell when they were really moving, like I could tell when they were really going at it on the canvas, and like to hear that like auditory cue like really helped like me connect with them on a deeper level. And then it was amazing too to see, and they also faced away from each other, so they didn't know what the other person was painting, and they have 2 very different styles, but a couple of the times they would turn their paintings around and they were like almost identical based on
Wow.
what they heard. And so like when
They were in sync, like on the frequency with the music and just the wow.
way that they heard the music was cohesive, which it's just blows my mind. Even thinking about it, I'm just like, man.
As you're describing it, it's like I want to go to a performance. Like I want to see this. Like that would be just an amazing thing to just go see and just to witness and see how that whole is all put together. So really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So awesome. We're probably at the top of our hour here at Campfire CoWorks. So Ben, Patrick, both you guys, thank you so much for being here, being part of the Campfire Fireside Chat. And for all of you guys that are out there listening, watching this currently or in the sometime near future, please go and check out Ben and Patrick at Shape and Sounds Art Academy. And don't forget to register for their summer camp, which is filling up fairly quickly. And that's going to be a lot of fun. If you got a talented or artistic son or daughter, or you know somebody that would like to get a creative outlet, please jump on there and register, and it'll be a great time for everyone involved. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next Fireside Chat.